Imagine a modern laboratory in the heart of Tokyo. Monitors light up with complex numbers and graphs. White neon lights reflect off metal tables cluttered with cables and computer components. In the center of the room stands a Japanese man in his 40s, wearing glasses with a serious expression, observing the results of an AI experiment he has been developing for years. His name is Dr. Hiroshi Takamura, a leading scientist in the field of artificial intelligence who has spent more than 2 decades of his life understanding how machines think, and through machines, understanding how humans think. Hiroshi was not born into a religious family. He grew up in a secular environment in Kyoto, raised by parents who believed more in logic and academic achievement than in religion. To him, the world was a collection of numbers, logic, and systems. God was a concept too vague to prove. He believed that if there was an absolute truth, it must be explained scientifically. His interest in human language led him to delve into natural language processing, NLP, a branch of artificial intelligence focused on machines' ability to understand human language. For years, Hiroshi led a research team at the prestigious Riken Institute in Japan, developing AI systems capable of reading, understanding, and even writing like humans. However, a simple experiment initially aimed at testing the performance of his NLP algorithm led him down an unexpected path, the path toward the light of Islam. In 2017, the project he led, called Neurotext, conducted trials on various ancient and religious texts as part of a linguistic experiment. His team fed several holy books into the machine: the Vedas, the Bible, the Tripitaka, and finally, the Quran. That was when Hiroshi first came into contact with the Quran, not with the intention of seeking guidance, but to analyze language patterns. But what he found was not only the beauty of word structures, but also mathematical anomalies and linguistic miracles that could not be explained by machines. Not even by his own algorithms. He began to ask himself, why is this book different? Why does its sentence structure seem free yet have perfect rhythm? Why is its meaning deep, yet conveyed in a simple style? And that was the beginning of his doubt about human logic. One night, as he opened a translation of the Quran in his office, his eyes landed on a verse that immediately shook his scientific arrogance. Allah says, "And if you are in doubt about what we have sent down upon our servant Muhammad, then produce a surah the like thereof and call upon your witnesses other than Allah, if you should be truthful. But if you do not, and you will never be able to, then fear the fire, whose fuel is men and stones." Surah Al-Baqarah, verses 23 and 24, for Hiroshi. This was not just a metaphorical challenge. He was a scientist, and challenge was a language he understood. He accepted the challenge silently. He turned on the servers, ran all the best generative AI models he had, and commanded them to create texts that could mimic the structure of the Quran. But the results always failed. Hundreds of texts generated by his system felt empty, soulless, lacking the same linguistic balance. He tried the latest deep learning models, even retrained models with the Quran dataset. Yet none came close to the grandeur of those divine sentences. In his personal journal, he wrote, "I never believed in God, but after studying this text statistically, linguistically, and semantically, I feel this is not man-made, nor is it machine-made." Night after night, Hiroshi became more engrossed in his quest. He did not just read the Quran to analyze its structure, but began reading its meaning, verse by verse. And when he read this verse, his heart trembled for the first time. Do they not then consider the Quran carefully? Had it been from other than Allah, they would surely have found therein much discrepancy. Surah An-Nisa, verse 82. As a scientist, he acknowledged that the integrity of logic, thematic consistency, and structural harmony in the Quran could not occur without a wise and absolute designer. But he also knew this was not artificial intelligence. This was intelligence beyond the limits of human and machine logic. And from that point, his journey toward Islam began. That night, the air in Tokyo was cold, although Hiroshi's laboratory was warm from the machines continuously working. He sat frozen in front of the monitor. In his hand was a cup of green tea untouched for an hour. On the screen, the results comparing the linguistic structure of the Quran with other holy scriptures were displayed as algorithmic graphs. His brow furrowed. His lips unconsciously whispered softly, "Why are you different?" his eyes fixed on the digital script of the Quran he had input a few days earlier. 3 weeks had passed since he received the project to analyze holy texts linguistically. But only one text kept troubling him. The Quran. In the NLP system he developed, texts from the Bible, the Vedas, even the writings of Confucius could be classified and mapped structurally with ease. But the Quran was truly strange. Its sentence structure was nonlinear, unlike ordinary narratives. It jumped from theme to theme, yet remained interconnected. There was consistent rhyme, harmonious rhythm, and the integrity of meaning remained intact despite the seemingly irregular order. This cannot be the work of an ordinary human, Hiroshi murmured. Yet his ego as a scientist refused to believe immediately. He decided to test the Quran in an unusual way. He wanted to prove that this book was merely ordinary Arabic literature, nothing more. The next day, he contacted a colleague, Dr. Ibrahim Khalid, a Muslim scientist from Jordan who was also an expert in computational linguistics and had worked with him on cross-cultural AI projects. Hiroshi spoke directly without preamble when the video call connected. "Ibrahim, I want to challenge the Quran. I want to prove that your book is not sacred linguistically." Ibrahim was silent for a moment, not because he was offended, but because he knew such challenges were not new. "You are not alone, Hiroshi. Many have come with the same intention, but they all ended with the same conclusion. They were not reading an ordinary book. You are right to question it, but be prepared to hear answers you cannot control." Hiroshi smiled cynically. "I am not religious, Ibrahim. I only believe in logic. And logic says, if something is extraordinary, there must be an algorithm." Ibrahim responded calmly. "If you seek the algorithm of God, then you will realize one thing. He is greater than all human-made algorithms. Read with your heart, not just with machines." Ibrahim's words felt strange to Hiroshi, but he did not reject them. He noted them in his heart. That night, he reopened the Quran. This time, he decided to read its translation slowly, one surah per night, starting with Surah Al-Fatiha. When he read, "It is you we worship and you we ask for help." Surah Al-Fatiha, verse 5. He paused for a long time. The sentence was simple, yet very profound. He felt as if the Quran was speaking directly to him, touching the deepest point in his mind, that perhaps all this time, he had relied too much on himself. A few days later, he tried inputting the mathematical structure of Surah Al-Fatiha into his AI system. The results were astonishing. His AI detected symmetrical patterns and numerical regularities in the number of verses, letters, and the usage of words like Rahman, Rahim, and Malik appearing in harmonious ratios. He recalled claims by Muslim scholars that the Quran contains numerical miracles. He began to research more deeply, including the number 19, which some researchers like Dr. Rashad Khalifa identified as a fundamental number in the Quran's mathematical structure. Hiroshi's mind was stirred. He, who had always relied on logic and code, now saw miracles that logic could not fully explain. One night, he heard the sound of rain outside the window. In the silence, he reopened the digital mushaf installed on his tablet. He came upon this verse, "Indeed, it is we who sent down the Quran, and indeed, we will be its guardian." Surah Al-Hijr, verse 9. He read and repeated it several times. In his mind arose a question that made his heart beat faster. If this is truly from God, then why am I, a person without religion, drawn to these words and feel peace? And that was when he realized he was no longer just studying a text. His heart was being split open by something greater than logic. For the first time in his life, he felt small, very small, in the presence of something magnificent. That day, the sky above Tokyo looked cloudy, reflecting Hiroshi's heart that was beginning to be filled with unease. On one hand, his logic as a scientist demanded objective and measurable evidence. But on the other hand, his soul was stirred by the depth of meaning in the verses he read. Hiroshi knew he needed more than just computer research. He needed to understand the Quran from a side that machines could not process. So he decided to meet someone who could explain the meaning behind those verses spiritually, not just linguistically. He contacted Dr. Ibrahim Khalid again, and this time invited him to meet in Kyoto at an interfaith and technology scientific forum that happened to be taking place. When they met, Hiroshi no longer carried the aura of challenge like before. There was a deep curiosity on his face. They sat together in the garden of Kyoto University campus, under cherry blossom trees beginning to bloom. Hiroshi opened the conversation with a soft but serious voice. "Ibrahim, I never expected to feel this way. All this time, I lived only with numbers and logic. But now, for some reason, my heart feels heavy. I read the Quran every night and I feel as if I am being watched." Ibrahim smiled gently and replied, "That is what we call hidayah, guidance. It is not something that can be programmed. It descends by Allah's will to whomever He wills." He then quoted a verse, "Allah guides whom He wills to a straight path." Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 213. Hiroshi bowed his head. His hands trembled slightly. "I don't know if I am hallucinating or I am being greeted by something greater than myself. But every time I read verses like this," Hiroshi opened his phone and showed the verse that kept him awake the night before. "And on the earth are signs for the certain, in faith and in yourselves. Then will you not see?" Surah Az-Zariyat, verses 20 and 21. "I feel like this book is opening me, word by word." Ibrahim looked at him deeply. He knew Hiroshi was starting to open his heart. So he continued, "You know, Hiroshi, the Quran is not a book of philosophy, nor a history book, nor pure science. It is revelation. But strangely, in this one book, you can find all of it. It speaks to reason, touches the heart, and guides the soul." Hiroshi replied softly but with feeling, "I read about embryos, about seas that do not mix, about orbits, all in the Quran. Even the details were mentioned before human science reached them." He sighed deeply. "I remember this verse. Do not the disbelievers see that the heavens and the earth were a joined entity, and we separated them and made from water every living thing? Then will they not believe?" Surah Al-Anbiya, verse 30. How could desert people 1,400 years ago know all this?
Ibrahim noted.
He knew the question was not an attack but a plea for explanation. "Because this is not the work of man, Hiroshi. It comes from Rabbul Alamin, the Lord of the worlds." There was a moment of silence. The wind gently blew the falling cherry blossom leaves. Hiroshi looked at the sky, then asked softly, "Then if this is truly from God, will He accept someone like me? Someone who once wanted to challenge Him?" Ibrahim answered calmly but with a deep voice, "The God who revealed this Quran is the most forgiving. He does not see who you were, but who you are today. Listen to this verse. Say, 'O my servants who have transgressed against themselves by sinning, do not despair of the mercy of Allah. Indeed, Allah forgives all sins. Indeed, it is He who is the forgiving, the merciful." Surah Az-Zumar, verse 53. Tears fell from Hiroshi's eyes without him realizing it. He covered his face with his hands, trying to hold back sobs. He, a scientist respected for his firm logic, was now moved by one thing only, a truth that no science could oppose. That day, a seed grew in his heart, a seed that he could not measure with graphs, a feeling that perhaps all this time, he had been pursued by a light he had long ignored. Since that meeting, Hiroshi Takahashi was no longer the same. In his laboratory at the University of Tokyo, he continued researching neurointerfaces and artificial intelligence. Yet in his mind, there was always an empty space that science could not fill. He began carrying the Quran in his bag, reading it quietly during lunch breaks. No one knew that the most rational scientist in the faculty was now exploring something invisible to the eye. The true meaning of life. At night, Hiroshi started comparing hundreds of religious documents. He read the Bible, the Vedas, and Buddhist literature, but only the Quran, he felt, spoke to him personally. Its sentences were firm yet calming, logical yet touching the soul. And one thing that made Hiroshi silent was the concept of Tawhid, the oneness of God. Hiroshi wrote in his journal, "If God is one, then all creation must have the same pattern. And if God is one, then truth will not branch out. The Quran does not offer a God limited by form or equated with creatures. It speaks of a God who depends on nothing. This is profound. Eventually, he found a verse that made his heart beat faster than usual. Say, He is Allah, who is one, Allah, the eternal refuge. He neither begets nor is born, nor is there to him any equivalent. Surah Al-Ikhlas, verses 1 to 4. Hiroshi read the verse repeatedly. Simple, concise, yet so deep. All this time, he had studied various belief systems that personified God in human form, creatures, even energy. But the Quran did not do that. It freed God from human imagination. That night, Hiroshi called Ibrahim. His voice trembled. Ibrahim, I want to ask something that might sound stupid. There is no stupid question, Hiroshi. What is it? Is it possible for someone to know God only through logic and heart, without ever seeing his face? Ibrahim smiled from the other side. That is the fitra, Hiroshi. The human heart is created to know its God. But God is not like creatures, not like what we imagine. The Quran teaches, there is nothing like unto him, and he is the hearing, the seeing. Surah As-Sayyura, verse 11. And that is why Islam is so pure in Tawhid. It does not deify creation, does not divide his power among creatures, and does not make God an absurd mystery. God in Islam is logical yet sacred, distant yet near, invisible yet real. Hiroshi was silent for quite a while, then said, If that's so, could it be God is really guiding me? Not could be, but that is what is happening. Guidance comes when you sincerely seek. Since that night, Hiroshi began praying quietly. He had not yet uttered the Shahada, but within himself, he began to submit to the One Almighty. He opened his palms, bowed his face to the ground, and whispered in Japanese, God, if you truly are one, if you hear me, then guide me to your truth. His tears broke. One thing that made Hiroshi tremble was not the failure of experiments or academic debates, but the realization that there is an all-knowing being who knows the contents of his heart even before he himself realizes it. That day, Tokyo was drizzled with rain. The gray sky seemed to reflect Hiroshi's troubled heart. He sat in a small coffee shop near the campus, staring at the steam rising from his cup of tea, which he hadn't sipped for a long time. His mind was in turmoil. Since the night he cried in sujud, one question kept haunting him. If I accept Islam, what about my family? What about my job? Will I lose everything? Science had given him a name. The academic world had raised him. But Islam offered something more than that: submission, peace, and answers he had never found in the laboratory. Yet the consequences were not small. He knew that in Japan, becoming a Muslim was not just a spiritual decision. It could mean alienation, avoidance, even betrayal by those closest to him. His phone vibrated. A message from his younger sister, Yuki. Brother, Mother misses you. You've been acting strange lately. Don't leave us. His eyes welled up. He bowed his head, covering his face with his hands. Then he remembered a verse Ibrahim had once shown him. Do the people think that they will be left to say, we believe, and they will not be tried? Surah Al-Ankabut, verse 2. The words echoed in his mind like a refrain. Hiroshi realized this was his test. If he had found the truth, now was the time to choose. But humans, even those academically wise, remain weak when it comes to leaving comfort behind. That night, Hiroshi returned home. He opened an old album, photos from his childhood, family parties, graduations, and a portrait of his late father. A devout Shinto, he gazed at his father's face in the photo and asked himself, am I betraying you, Father, if I choose a different path? Or am I seeking a higher truth than all we have known? His phone rang again. This time it was Ibrahim. Ibrahim asked, are you okay? Hiroshi said, I don't know. I'm confused. Every night I cry, I pray, but I haven't said the Shahada. My heart wants to, but my mind is afraid. I don't want to lose my family, Ibrahim said. I understand. I was afraid of losing too. But do you know, Hiroshi, that even the prophets felt alone in their struggles? Look at Prophet Abraham. He was expelled by his father. Look at Prophet Noah, whose son refused to join him. Even Prophet Muhammad himself was insulted and threatened by his people. Yet they remained steadfast because they knew they were fighting not just for belief, but for truth. Silence. Hiroshi took a deep breath. Hiroshi said, Ibrahim, if I say the Sharia tonight, will I become a full Muslim? Ibrahim said, Yes, Hiroshi, you will become our brother in faith, and Allah will forgive all your past sins. As the Prophet said, Islam erases all previous sins. Hadith narrated by Muslim. Hiroshi said, But I can't read the Quran yet. I don't know Arabic, Ibrahim said. Sincerity is more valuable to Allah than fluency in language. Allah knows your heart. He sees your effort. Even in the Quran it is said, Indeed, those who have believed and emigrated and fought in the cause of Allah, those expect the mercy of Allah. And Allah is forgiving and merciful. Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 218. Hiroshi said, Then, I am ready. Ibrahim said, Allahu Akbar. If you are truly certain, then follow me. Say this phrase. Hiroshi stood, tears wetting his face. He raised his palms and slowly uttered, Ashhadu an la ilaha illa Allah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasul Allah. His sobs broke. For the first time in his life, he felt whole, not as a scientist nor as a Japanese man, but as a human returning to his fitra.in that night sujud. He recited Al-Fatiha with a trembling voice, but his heart and soul had fully embraced Islam. A few days after reciting the Sharia, Hiroshi felt a peace he had never experienced before. However, that peace did not last long. Trials came, heavier than he had anticipated. That morning, he decided to be honest with his mother. He knew this was not just an ordinary conversation. It was the most tense moment of his life. Hiroshi prepared his mother's favorite green tea. He sat on the tatami floor, waiting for his mother to come from the backyard. Soon, the sliding door sound was heard, and the middle-aged woman entered with a motherly smile. His mother said, Ah, you're finally home, Hiroshi. You've been talking less and less with us lately. Are you sick? Hiroshi said, No, Mom, I'm fine, but I have been keeping something from you. His mother's smile slowly faded. She said, Something? About what? Hiroshi said, bowing deeply, Mom, I have embraced Islam. His mother's face changed drastically. Her eyes widened. Her hands trembled holding the cup. She said, What? Islam? The religion of terrorists? Hiroshi, this isn't a joke, is it? Hiroshi said, Mom, I know that's what many people think, but all of that is wrong. I am not misguided, Mom. In fact, I finally understand what true life means. His mother stood up. Her voice trembled, almost crying. She said, What about your father's spirit? What about our ancestors? Do you think they were all wrong? Hiroshi said, No, Mom. I never hated our traditions, but this is about truth. I can't close my eyes anymore. I'm not leaving this family. I'm only following the light I found. His mother cried. Hiroshi could not hold back his tears either. His heart broke seeing his mother disappointed, yet his soul did not want to turn away from Islam. He remembered a verse he once read in Surah Luqman. And if they, your parents, strive to make you associate with me that of which you have no knowledge, do not obey them but accompany them in this world with appropriate kindness. Surah Luqman, verse 15. That he knew that even though his mother had not accepted Islam, he still had to honor her. So with a gentle voice he said, Mom, I will not leave. I will remain your son. I will continue to love you. But please, don't force me to leave this truth. A few days later, news of his conversion spread around the campus. Some colleagues greeted him with curiosity, but others began to distance themselves. Some even mocked him as someone too emotional and losing scientific rationality. In a research project meeting, a senior professor, Dr. Saito, asked in front of everyone, "Mr. Takahashi, I heard you are now Muslim? You know, Islam contradicts science, don't you?" The room fell silent. Everyone looked at Hiroshi. Hiroshi said, "Dr. Saito, it is precisely because of science that I became Muslim, because I know it is impossible for this universe to be orderly and complex without a perfect will." He then mentioned one verse that had left a mark in his heart. "Indeed, in the creation of the heavens and the earth and the alternation of the night and the day are signs for those of understanding." Surah Ali Imran, verse 190. Hiroshi said, "I am a scientist, and this verse made me rethink. Islam does not kill my reason. Islam actually awakens my heart." Dr. Saito was silent. No rebuttal followed, because Hiroshi's logic was undeniable. Days passed. Hiroshi began regularly praying at a small mosque in Tokyo. He attended Tassen classes, learning to read the Quran from the basics. Every night, he reflected, "I used to study the human brain. Now I delve into the human heart and soul. Science has brought me to understand the mechanism of life, but Islam has brought me to understand the purpose of life." He now understood the meaning of this verse. "And I did not create the jinn and mankind except to worship me." Surah Az-Zariyat, verse 56. Hiroshi rediscovered his identity. He was no longer just a scientist. He was a servant of Allah. And from that point, his life changed completely.